Uh, Welcome everyone to the last day of our program. Today we're going to have a great speaker, Prajita. She's been with the Google for almost 20 years, and she's gone through a lot of managerial stuff, and she has a very good exposure about what is the difference between hierarchy and democracy, what works well, what work doesn't, and. I had a very similar to our previous conversations break beginning today. But we had a very interesting session that kind of got me thinking and brought me back to my Wall Street days. Something that I heard from the COO back then, who's now a CEO of Goldman Sachs. And I wanted really to kind of bring that back to this group because I really think it has value and I think it relates really well to the last day of the program. So, how many of you are familiar with this equation? So assets equals liability plus equity. All right. Yeah. The majority of you are.
Yeah,
So so like effectively what that means, right? For those who need a little bit of the refresher, is that everything that a company owned, it's either owns because it has the liability to pay it back, meaning it's a debt, right? So you have a sort of things to do, things to pay, like your credit cards, your loans, your everything, and then you have your equity, pretty much everything that your shareholders bring to the table. So every asset on the books is either financed by the liability by your creditors or by the equity, your shareholders. And that actually translates really well sort of towards the career, right? Is that your career is, again, it's a liability and equity. But in the liability section, this is actually your responsibilities. As with the liabilities, you still have to work, you still have to deliver what you've been hired for. The same way as a liability, you have to pay on your loans, otherwise there is a default, and there is a much stricter rules around your liabilities. The companies are forced to have all of those things done at the particular time. Otherwise, they're going to be defaulted and be in the bad standing with the creditors. But the same applies to your career. That if you're not doing your work, if you're not doing exactly what you've been hired for, you get in trouble, effectively, right? And that will go into your career. But the real growth is actually happens outside of your direct responsibility, your equity, right? Your equity, something that you do additionally to your responsibility that actually adds towards your career. And this is usually where the most growth is happening. And then when we think about it, there's also one more catch here is that usually companies have much more shareholders than they have creditors. They don't know, usually companies banking with two, three, four, five banks, maybe in your case 20, but that's just a big site. While shareholders, there's a thousands and thousands of them. And look at the shareholders like Tesla. There is a lot of this equity coming in that is based on the marketing, that is based on promoting your brand, that is based on promoting your particular involvement. So here, we really need to think is that your career really has those two parts, something that you are required to do and something that you need to do to build that career. So I would like to go into the breakout rooms for about 7 minutes. And this is what I would like to discuss. They're going to be a smaller group and discuss with each other, what do you think your liabilities are? What is the exact thing that you were hired to do? Not like from the job description, but like from working in your feet. What do you think is what are your liabilities? You need to do one, two, three things. This is like the key things that you need to do for your career. But then what can you do to increase your equity? What can you do additional to those three responsibility that will increase your equity? And maybe there is some things that you already do additional to your responsibilities, but maybe those things are not the most effective ones. Maybe you can do something else that would increase your liability more, increase your equity more. So let's put together in the smaller group. So state your three liabilities and let the other person in your group actually confirm that. You all work together, you all know, and you can say, no, this is your responsibility. This is what you have to do. Yes, I agree with that. Or I don't agree with that because I actually see it this way. So let's go into the groups of 2 or 3 and really discuss that. What are your liabilities? What are your responsibilities? And how can you increase your equity in your career? Is it clear or good to go? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let me go into this. And then I'm opening. We don't have anyone else. So here we go.
It was short.
All right, and we are back.
Yes.
So hopefully you had a good discussion. So how about someone shares a little bit? What was kind of discussed in your group, and then was there any surprises? Like somebody says, I think like my responsibilities and my liabilities is 1, 2, 3, and the other person said, well, not really. Was this anyone had that?
I was with Jan in the group, and we were after 10 seconds aligned.
All right. All
And I
right.
will not say what, because you came up with it, Honza. You can share.
Yeah, I
with the
know.
group.
No,
Okay.
but it was actually I just recycled the old dream of the BSc when basically our responsibility is to drive results, grow people, and shape future. And behind these, I would say parts that are I would say a bit more specifics, but ultimately you can fit it pretty much in all the things we are trying to achieve in the BSc, right? We are here to deliver results, to grow the people that are around us, to deliver the pipeline, and to come up with some new and let's say crazy, interesting things to deliver to help us to deliver the future.
Interesting. But I also think that some of that a little bit more even on the equity side, right? So like for example, creating something new. It is not like I think like the difference here is right is that like liabilities is the thing that you have to do in your position. Like you absolutely have to do it, and otherwise, if you don't do it, then for example, like you don't have this job, right? And equity is everything else. That like if you do it, it's great, but then at the same time, it's not necessarily require you to stay employed, so to speak, right? And that's I think a very clear definition that people need to have in their head is that because a lot of times we see in the career that people are trying to do something without actually thinking, how does it add to my career? Like, yes, I'm doing this responsibility. This is my first thing that I need to address. 1, 2, 3. I need to do the, let's say, I don't know, like when I was in banking, my responsibility was to bring clients, right? And that was really the only thing that I had to do. I had to bring the clients, and everything else was actually as a nice addition to it. Yes, it is equity that I build, but my first and foremost responsibility was to talk to my clients and bring them on and sign the deals with them. That was my very first responsibility. Everything else that I did inside the firm was great, but not necessary, and that was building on my equity. But my liability was to bring clients. So maybe someone has a little bit more specific. Someone discussed it a little bit more specific. What was their responsibility? Miguel, I see you went off mute.
Yes, well, we discussed more the equity because the
Okay, please go
responsibility
ahead.
is more clear. So for me, the equity, what we discuss is your network,
Uh-huh.
the people that you know in other areas of the company that can help you get things done, embracing others, innovate, doing new things, being entrepreneur, proactively coming up with new ideas, and also the knowledge and the spirit and the experience that you already have, that helps you in the position.
So did you discuss how would you promote it? How would you actually go and add and do everything there?
Well, actually not.
Okay. All right.
We were just brainstorming on this.
All right. Curious to hear anyone else. Anyone had like some of the discussion about liabilities and responsibilities of actually outlining what is like the thing that they need to do.
We also talked about equity, and
Okay.
what Miguel was saying, we talked about education and training and skills in general. track record,
Mm-hmm.
and let's sort of team engagement, team dynamics. Those are things that people talk among themselves, and that can increase your equity as well.
Mm-hmm.
On the liability side, we very much align. So you have to deliver on your results, most namely your targets and some other KPIs, and you have to develop your people. So those are the two major buckets that we talked about there.
All right. Anyone else want to share, Mikhail?
We discussed also liabilities. I was with the Xavier. We are both, let's say, on the financial side. So we discussed at least also how we see our role is to ask the right question to drive the right decision making. So we're also aligned very easily. But of course, it could be that others have a different perception of financial people. What they are chasing me again, what they need to ask this from me, or what they are doing. So I think it's interesting to compare those different perceptions.
So I would say I would actually encourage you to go and in the next meeting with your manager, be it Flavio or somebody else, is that outline like 3 specific things that you think is the most crucial to your job, right? That your crucial liabilities, and just say, am I right? Am I right in understanding what is the absolute responsibility of my position? This is the liability. This is the responsibility I have to do. So and again, go as specific as possible. So for example, do I pronounce Balash or Balaz?
Balazs, it's okay. It's fine.
No, but tell me. I mean, I'm Eastern European, so I can twist my tongue pretty well.
Yeah, Balazs.
Balash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in your example, right? When we're talking about the finance, it has to be like this, like very specific. That like for example, I don't know what you do, but like for example, you need to before a shipment, you need to send your financial model, let's say, that goes like, this is what's going to be shipped, and this is going to be the pricing, this is everything that goes in, right? And it has to be done by, T plus 5, whatever the T is, right?
Yeah.
And that's your kind of like your main responsibility. Is it so, right? Meet with Flavio, meet with your manager, and again, just go as specific as possible and discuss it, because knowing what your absolute liabilities are, then you can kind of jungle the equity, right? You can say, well, you know what? I want to do this thing more because it adds more to equity, because it gets me more exposure, it gets me more seen, it builds my equity. I have more of the shareholders into my career. All right. Anyone else? I know Aprigita's already on the line, so just anyone else wants to share?
Maybe one more thing,
Yeah.
tying it to what we did yesterday, is not only your network, but how you use your network in the good sense, and be in key conversations, reach out to key people, because if you are in the top of mind of people, equity will be high. Otherwise.
Yep, absolutely.
You collaborate with your network, no, Alpha?
Yeah, no, and I think,
that's a great way. That's a great way of framing it.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people, when it comes down to their careers, right, they really think that if by doing a good job would be the only requirement, right, and that would be the same as saying like no company actually needs a marketing department, because as long as they do the good product, everyone will buy it. Well, it's not true, right? You need to market yourself. You need to get exposed to as many people as possible. But all right, anyway, I'm not talking too much, and we have already Aprigita on the line, so I would like to give